Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing today? Good. Thank y'all for coming out. One quick note before we get started. There is a sign-in sheet for your professors out on the table outside. Make sure to sign in. There are three. Two of them are specific to particular professors, and one that's general. Please mark down your professor on the general one, please. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have, I don't remember your title. Assistant Special Agent Charles Wallace, and Reyes, who is a former student. He graduated in the spring, right? December. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to them and let them take it away.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Hey, so I just want to talk a little bit about what Army CID is, who we are, and then I'll turn it over to Agent Reyes, and then I'll kind of close out this evening, if you don't mind. So Army CID, we're the Army Criminal Investigation Division. Has anyone ever seen NCIS? All right, so no one really knows Army CID because we don't have our own TV show, even though they approached us first. So I'll still stand by that. But so we have the same kind of mission set as NCIS does, except we have Army personnel and installations that we provide services for. So as long as there's an Army or a Department of Defense nexus on any felony offense, then we have the investigative authority, responsibility, and jurisdiction to participate, whether it was on the installation, off the installation, in those regards. So we work very frequently with our counterparts at our local, state, federal levels, whether it be the Sheriff's Department, local city police, as well as our counterparts in the FBI, DHS, ICE, and things along those lines. So the type of offenses that we look at, like I said, are all felony level. So, murders, deaths, sex crimes, larcenies at a certain level. We're starting to delve into domestic terrorism, doing some of those types of investigations these days as well. And so we haven't always been that way, though. And so that's kind of the reason why I wanted to come here and talk with you tonight is because, we've evolved over the years. I've been in CID for going on 20 years now. And, the CID that I grew up in is ever evolving and changing. And, I'm happy to be part of this transformation that we're going through. We used to be a military-led organization. Now we're a civilian-led organization to fall in suit with our federal counterparts. We have a senior executive director, and then all of our leadership is now all civilian. So we are no longer a military-run organization. Like I said, we're that federal law enforcement model, and we're following that suit along like NCIS is now. So with that being said, that's kind of a little bit of a background and history about who we are, what we do, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Agent Reyes, and then let him talk about how he got on his path here. So,
how y'all doing? Can y'all hear me? I'm Ray Reyes. I'm a criminal investigator for Army CID. I was going to do a PowerPoint, but I crave attention too much, and I didn't want y'all looking up there. No, I'm just kidding. So I graduated December of 2023 from here. I was privileged to do an internship my final semester here at SAM. Started out pretty basic. I had gone in and just asked what's out there for me. I had no plan. I did not know what I was going to eat for dinner that night or what I was doing with my life. It was Professor Freeman who had sat down with me and talked about some options. And one of them that really stuck out to me was something my father was actually in, which was CID. During this time, CID was going through this transformation. Obviously, I had no knowledge about it other than, hey, they do crimes. So, investigate crimes, I should say. We do not do crimes, okay? So I have a sit down with him. I talked to him about it and start reaching out to some agents, just kind of picking their brain. What do they do? What do they investigate? And immediately interested me. Like I said, I did not have a plan. I did not have something in mind that I wanted to investigate, but what I did want to do was help victims. And no victim in mind, whether that's a violent crime, white collar, or sexual assault, whatever it may be, I wanted to help victims. And the best way for me to do that was through CID. given that CID can investigate a lot of different things, it immediately sparked an interest. And I ended up hopping on, I want to say it was November, no, that was way too late, September of 2023. So during my time there, something y'all may not know about, does anybody know what the UCMJ is? One, awesome. You know it, that's great. UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice, something we do not learn about here in college, but let me tell you, it is a great thing to look at no matter what field you're going into. So my first week trying to investigate the Army, military, I immediately looked at the UCMJ. Ran through it again, ran through it again. And let me tell you, it is confusing and it is basic at the same time, okay? I would talk to an agent and I'd ask him a question, and extremely helpful, but at the same time I felt like I was asking a stupid question. But let me tell you, there's no stupid questions, okay? Especially with law enforcement. When you're helping a victim, you want to know everything there is about that crime, okay? So the one piece of advice I'm going to give to y'all is that when you're investigating a crime, know the elements of the crime. Whether y'all choose a CID or you're just going to go whatever route it is, look at the elements of a crime. You cannot investigate it without knowing the pieces that you're investigating. So this is how I began. I ran through it, and I ran through it, and I ran through it. Over time, I began helping the agents out on day-to-day tasks. Simple things, not just running to get coffee, but looking at what they're doing in investigative activity reports, which is something we do. You know, every time we do an action, we have to write a report about it. And this is where I began to see the capabilities that CID has to offer. So with CID, we investigate military, which means anything on or off an installation with a nexus with an Army, active duty, or reserve. So first thing I did once we started looking at investigative activities is I said I need to know my clientele. I now know the elements of a crime. I need to know my clientele. So I got out there. I started meeting people. I started talking with these soldiers. And I did not have a lot of common with them at first. They did not like me. I'm a college kid coming out. But CID was the biggest helping hand out there. Because let me tell you, going up to somebody and saying, hey, I want to investigate people like you is not a good icebreaker, okay? I would not recommend it. But those who did accept me and wanted to talk to me gave me a deeper understanding of what I'm doing and the victims I'm trying to advocate for. So that's another piece of advice I'm going to give you. Know your clientele. Know who you're helping, who you're looking at. It's just going to help you in the long run. So following this, I still didn't have a plan. I was like, I really like CID. They're going through this whole transformation I still don't understand. And I'm trying to figure out what is the next few years of my life going to look like. And thus became the opportunity of the transformation of CID. So CID is transforming from a military-led organization, as ASAC Wallace had said, to a civilian-led organization. And with that, they needed some more civilians. So I had reached out and I said, hey, what opportunities do y'all have for somebody like me? And they said, nothing. I said, great. So about a month later, I reached back out and said, hey, what opportunities do you have for somebody like me? And they said, nothing. I said, great. It wasn't until about a month before my internship ended, they reached back out and they said, hey, we have this great new thing. It's for recent graduates only to learn this organization from the bottom up. So put my application in, and now I'm here standing before you showing that this thing does work. And of course, I get selected to come and speak to y'all immediately. So my main pieces of advice for you is know your clientele, know the elements of your crime, and really just try to be a good person, be a victim advocate. Because at the end of the day, I know most of y'all are in here, I'm hoping want to be in law enforcement, otherwise why would you be in here? But the main thing of what we do isn't to put criminals away, it's to help somebody, it's to help that victim. And there's no such thing as a victimless crime. They may say that, but let me tell you, there's no such thing. Somebody out there is hurt from that. And the more you can understand that, and the more you're trying to be an advocate before a detective will help you tremendously. But thank y'all for y'all's time.
There we go. All right, I'm good. So my path was a lot different than Agent Reyes's. Obviously, I'm a little bit older. Back in 2002, I decided that working nights at Federal Express and going to college in the day was just not something that I enjoyed at all. Grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone, and I wanted to explore the world and find something different. So I decided to join the Army. So I enlisted in 2002, broke my mother's heart, and enlisted as an infantryman. Even though I scored high enough on the ASVABs to do anything, absolutely whatever I wanted in the Army, just sign me up. I wanted to be a leg, I guess. Really what it was, the recruiter showed me a lot of dollar signs, and I was like, all right, I'll check that box, that's fine. And not really understanding the veracity of that decision and what I was getting into. So I go to basic training, and my first duty assignment, I've never been away from home, first duty assignment, Hawaii. Yay. It was, I hated it. And it's only because I've walked the island more times than any time I wanted to count, with, something on my back, and, building those, relationships and camaraderie, everything that the Army talks about. So I did my time there for a little while, and I went to a field sanitation class, and got a break from doing field exercises and whatnot. And I spoke to an MP, a military police, who did corrections. And during this course, he introduced me to what CID was and talked about its mission and, what they do. And I've always had interest in law enforcement. Like I said, I grew up watching NCIS. I always thought, Jethro Gibbs was great. I wanted to do that one day. And so it interested me. And keeping that in the back of my mind, I started doing a little bit more research about, hey, what does it take? What are the prerequisites? What do I need to do in order to get into this organization? Because I could reclassify and get into a different MOS or military occupational specialty at that point. So I did my research. Not really liking me, apparently. Did my research, needed additional college credits, so I started going to class at night. And then got what I needed. And then up from the Coconut Grove, we had a 30-day field exercise, and I was tasked to go. So here I am in Hawaii, walking around. All right, hopefully this one's a little bit better. Walking around the jungle, and on the last day of the exercise, we're walking back, and I'm just like, man, I'm tired of this. I don't want to do this anymore. And so literally I dropped my rucksack, war paint still on my face, and I tell my platoon sergeant, hey, I got to go somewhere. I need to go talk to someone. So I go to the local CID office there at Schofield Barracks, knock on the door. This little admin specialist comes to the door, looks at me like look like I'm homeless or something. I don't know. But she had this look on her face. And I told her, hey, I'm here to see the first sergeant. I'm interested in becoming a CID agent. So she goes to grab the first sergeant, and he looks at me. I'm all defeated. I'm tired. I'm dirty. I haven't bathed in probably 30 days. And he's like, hey, how can I help you? And I was like, I want to be a CID agent. He just laughed at me. He's like, I bet you do. And so he was like, listen, go home, shower, get some rest, come back and see me on Monday. And so from that point forward, it was in his hands, as well as the command sergeant major of the battalion that I was assigned to. And so I worked through my command sergeant major to be able to get released, get on a 4187 to be assigned and do on-the-job training there at the CID office until I was able to submit my packet and get accepted into CID to go to school. And so I did my on-the-job training there for about, I think it was about 15 months, and finally I got my acceptance letter. I got a school date. This was circa August 2004. And so I go to CID school at Fort Leonard Wood. That was the only school that we had back then. Now we're sending agents to FLETC, specifically our civilian agents. We're still mandated and required by statute to send all of our military members still to Fort Leonard Wood because it's codified into the NDAA now. But obviously we're working to see what other changes or methodologies we can do to maybe get that policy changed or something else. But so I did my time at the CID school there. My first duty assignment after I got finished with school was Fort Benning, Georgia. I did a year there, and then I got orders to go and deploy to Iraq. So I did a 12-month stint over there in Iraq. Came back from that. Then PCS or change stations, went to Redstone Arsenal. And at this point, I already had a son, and my wife at that time was pregnant with my daughter. And so I had come to pretty much a crossroads in my career where, okay, do I want to stay in the Army or do I not? You know, I got tired of moving, got tired of deployments, that sort of stuff. And so I made the conscious decision that I was going to separate and get out of the Army, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I put in applications at Memphis Police Department. I put in the application still with CID because we had a position available for special victims investigators. This was kind of a new concept that they had recently developed, and you know, being a civilian in CID was not the norm back in 2009 when I separated from the Army. And so Guy Syrian from headquarters gave me a call and was like, hey, we've been trying to get in touch with you. Do you still want this job? I was like, sure, you know, let me you know, look at the salary compared to, you know, what other offers I've got. He sent it to me. I called him immediately. He was like, I'll see you next week. So from that point forward, I went to the Special Victims Capability course, and I will tell you, it changed my life and changed my perspective with my time as a special victim investigator. Because I will tell you, being able to have a voice for the voiceless and being able to help them in their healing process and potentially eventually one day get to closure is one of the most rewarding things that I think I've ever experienced in my life, at least. So I've spent, you know, countless hours and time with victims of some of the most horrible traumatic events in their lives, and seeing the backside of that and them looking at me saying thank you, you know, thank you for believing in me, thank you for helping me through this process, really, you know, resonates with me. And so that's the reason why I've stayed in law enforcement as long as I have, is because that's what drives me and keeps me going. And so as I progressed in my career, obviously responsibilities increased for me as well. And so eventually I became a supervisory special agent, ran a team, and was pretty decent at it, I guess. And so it taught me a lot about leadership as well. And, you know, learning from my teammates and understanding that one person, the way that you lead, the style that you address, you know, certain individuals is not tailored to everyone. And so you've got to adapt and change your leadership style to the individual. And so, you know, I learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about my teammates, learned about leadership qualities, learned a lot about the career itself and where we're going. And so after my SSA time, then I decided, okay, I want to put on my big boy shoes and let's see if I can become an assistant special agent in charge. And thankfully, in January of this year, got selected for that, and I've been running the Fort Sill resident agency since then. And so if there's any advice that I can give any of you in here today is just, you know, if you've made a decision that law enforcement is what you want to do, you know, obviously continue with that dream. There's going to be hard days, and you've got to come to the realization that those hard days can never win. And, you know, you've got to be steadfast. You've got to have a support system. You've got to be able to both understand and confront some of the things that you're going to be encountered with, and be able to cope with that. You know, have an outlet, go to the gym, have someone that you can talk to, you know, someone that you can confide in, because there's going to be things that you in law enforcement, you know, no human being is expected, you know, 9 times out of 10, they don't see the things that we do. And so cognitively, you've got to be able to talk about it, because otherwise it'll eat you inside out. So that'll be my advice to you, you know, and then, of course, you know, eventually the day will come where you hang your boots up, and then, you know, all you have is the memories. And so what is the exit strategy? You know, are you ever going to be able to step away and, you know, do something different? Because a lot of the times that I see with my my peers is that they stay with it even after they retire. And so is that something that you also want to, you know, consider and think about later on after your career's over? Do you want to do consultation? Do you want to, you know, be a professor, or, you know, do something along those lines? Do you want to be an instructor? So those are some of the things that I have to, you know, think about and consider coming up here in the near future for myself. But I guess we'll open it up for questions. Yes, sir. What's been the many changes over the years as far as specific, like, are you looking for like changes in leadership? Are you looking for... Okay, so the biggest change, like I said, is that military structure that we had in place. We were ran by a 2-star general whenever I was first coming on board. And we always, we had groups and we had battalions, and we had that military kind of structure throughout the organization. And so when the director came on board back in 2021, that all went away. So all of that military structure has now gone. They're back under the Military Police Corps. And now we're set up like our other MCIO or federal law enforcement counterparts, where we have field offices, and then each field office has like an RA or a resident agency or a resident unit that falls under it. And so that's part of the area of operations for each field office, if that makes sense. Okay. Yes, ma'am. How does the training look like on the civilian side? I will let Mr. Rayos talk about that.
So from my experience, once I put in the application, which was mid-December of last year, you go through a lot of phases of the application. First, you'll do an interview online. It could be with a group or a board. You'll do a psychological evaluation, a background investigation, and they'll start to wean out and choose who they want. From there, you will be onboarded and then sent, as ASAC Wallace was mentioning, FLETC, out in Georgia, which is the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. So for the civilian side, you'll go from application to FLETC to being an agent. So it's a quick process once you get onboarded. They want to hook you up and then get you gone immediately. That way, as soon as you get back, you're helping those victims like we were talking about. So I'm not going to say it's difficult on your end, but it requires persistence. You gotta be willing to reach out and check where your progress is, where your paperwork might be at. But it's all in the day's work when you have that ending in sight, you know, that finishing line. But I wouldn't say it's a difficult path. I would say it's a persistent path.
Now, training specifically, obviously you're going to be weapons, tactics, law, and, you know, report writing, that sort of stuff. That's all going to be encompassed in the FLETC training. A lot of times I know that they have a heavy impact on driving as well. And you know, like I said, shooting with your firearm is stressed there pretty importantly as well. Yes, ma'am. Do we have internship opportunities for students? We do.
I'll be a prime example here. So as far as I'm aware, we are getting it set up currently. If this is something that does interest you, I will tell you to go ahead and reach out. I can get you a great point of contact for that if you want to see me afterwards. The other thing to do for all of y'all, if this is something that is kind of piquing your interest, go to, it's cid.army.mil. What you can do there is you can put in where you are currently standing, experience, anything you may have, and you can join the talent network that CID has. And what this does is, if there's a job opening that you fit, they will send it out to you. The other place to look is USA Jobs. You can make a resume there and do the exact same thing. You can look up specific to CID, and anytime CID will release a job to the public, you'll get notified. For the internships specifically, though, I'd say reach out. I'll give you a point of contact afterwards if you'd like. And I know they're trying to figure out a whole system right now and something that can work for you.
Goodness gracious. Okay, we'll start. Yes. How male-dominated is CID? It's not. No, I mean I wouldn't say that it's a male-dominant workforce at all. My special agent in charge is a female. I've got plenty of women that work in my office, specifically at SEAL. I know JBSA does as well. So I mean I wouldn't say that it's male-dominant at all. You now, yes, ma'am. So the biggest difference is the arrest authority. That's the only difference. I would tell you is the only difference between the two. As a civilian, you've got certain arrest powers and authorities that military personnel do not. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
How long between the internship and to get hired? I had put in my application, if you mean just from application point, I had put in the application December of 2023 and started around the August time frame. So good amount of months. Again, there's a lot of pieces that go into place there. From the beginning of my internship, how I was kind of mentioning before, this whole transformation has really changed things. So I'm not going to give you a set date like, hey, it's 6 months or it's 2 months, because this whole process is changing as we speak right now. I will tell you it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of persistence, but wasn't anything where I was waiting over a few years.
Oh, for me now? Okay, yes, ma'am. A conflict of interest from transitioning from military to civilian. So I will tell you, there was a lot of hesitancy from those that were in the military to change, especially in the leadership roles. I would say, but once those personnel were kind of shifted in other directions, and we've got that leadership structure in place, then I think that all kind of has subsided. Like I said, when I was talking before, like I'm excited about the transition. Like I will tell you, there's been many a times where I feel like I've been standing on something like this, dancing, stomping my feet because we needed change, and thankful now that we're getting the change that we've been needing for so many years. So, yes, sir. I see you in the back. Okay, so how often are civilian agents shifted overseas, if at all? Okay, so we do have civilian agents that are over in Germany, Korea, Italy, Japan, all over the place. And so, typically you're looking at 3 years, I would say, but you can do more if you wanted to. You don't, you don't have to come back stateside, but that's obviously, if you want to go there. Now, as far as if you're asking about conflict specific, we're not in conflict currently, so we haven't seen any agents, just been shifted over into any, kind of combat environments. Like I said, I think my last deployment was 2011, so, and that I was a civilian then, but and then, just to kind of ease any fears about any of that, typically our deployments would, if something like that were to happen, 6 months. It's not, anything that, typical Army or regular military personnel would be exposed to. So, yes, ma'am. Yes, we are a federal. How are we different? We're the best. See, she said she knew that. Okay.
So the the big difference between us is we're unique in the way as we can investigate things federally, so any felony crime, or through the UCMJ, as we talked about earlier. Not many people have this capability. You look at FBI, who's federal. You know, a lot of our counterparts only specialize in one thing, usually felony level cases. So we are unique in that way, that we are investigating things maybe on base through the UCMJ or through things that are felony federal level crimes. So I'll go to him first. I know he's been raising his hand back there. I'm not the best to speak on this. Here, you wanna switch over real quick for this one?
Yeah, I will tell you. So that kind of goes back to the conflict of, you know, what you were talking about. So there are some personnel that feel a certain way because, you know, they may be an E5 in the Army as a sergeant making, you know, a certain amount of dollars, and then you've got a GS, I don't know, 11, 13, and they're doing the same job. But I will tell you the pay is, it's different. Because in the military you have a lot of entitlements, like your basic allowance for housing, your basic allowance for subsidies or food and whatnot. You get a clothing allowance. And then some of your stuff is you know, tax free. So and then you don't have to pay for insurance and things along those lines. So, you know, as a GS employee, I'm a GS 14. I'm not doing terrible. Let's just put it that way. But you know, if you come in at a GS 9 or a GS 7, depending on your experience level, it's not that much of a difference between you and an E5, I would say, in the military, just based off of my experience. But you got anything else to add to that?
Can't truly speak on the military aspect of it. I would just say you will be taken care of. CID is great on it. They also offer locality pay. So it's not a stationary, hey, it's, you know, this amount of money. It also depends on where you live, where they want you to work at. For example, Hawaii, I know, they're like, hey, milk's $25 and 2 of your toes. So they'll compensate you for that, and they adjust for that type of thing.
Also, I forgot to mention LEAP, Law Enforcement Availability Pay. So that's 25% on top of your basic pay as a GS employee, as well as an 1811 federal employee. So they don't do overtime, you know, like we don't have overtime or anything like that, except for very minimal situations. So the way that the government gets their money out of you is giving you that 25% incentive to help pay for it and cover that. So, you know, let's say if you come in at GS 7 or GS 9 and it's, you know, $60,000-$70,000 base pay, tack on 25%, and then whatever your locality pay is, and then, you know, that's what your salary will be.
So what are the basic requirements for the position? So, okay. I got you. So the basic requirements for application specifically depends on the job you're applying for. So the agency will release, for example, they could release a recent graduate position or GS 7 position, which is where you would come in as. For that, they were looking for a bachelor's degree. Physically, you would have a physical examination during your application process to see if you meet the physical requirements. That's not, I wouldn't say that's an extensive part. It's more just your basic physical, making sure there isn't a underlying illness that could affect your performance in the job. So that actually doesn't happen until after you have joined. So that is something that you would do at FLETC. So those requirements are changing constantly based on what time we're in. I know the test in general, I couldn't tell you exact time you have to hit. It's a 1.5 mile run, followed by what's called they call it a chest press. I'm not sure if any of y'all lift a lot in here, but like the Smith machine, just pushing that bar straight up. An agility test, which is like a little obstacle course you run through, and a sit and reach, which is, you know, just touching your toes. they change the requirements every time I check it, to be fair, so I can't say there's a certain time, but they will test that you are in shape based on those examinations there. So.
You had a second question? No? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Age requirement matters the position again. For my position, for example, it was 22. Most federal agencies you will find, I know most of them that I had looked into, are 22 to 23 years old. I'd also checked the requirements when you apply. It will say some of them require that you are 22 the day you apply. Some of them are, the application may be ongoing. So if you turn 22 in a month, they may give you some type of benefit of the doubt there that you wouldn't be able to start until you're 22, 23 years old. But that's about the usual range I've seen.
And then don't forget, we have a maximum range for federal law enforcement as well of 37. So just keep that in mind as well.
You do have to, you're asking if you need to sign anything to move, like giving. Yes, most federal agencies will require you to sign what's called a mobility agreement, which is agreement to the government that's saying if they were to call upon it, you will have to go wherever they send you. You would have a basic understanding. I know with us, we have our locations well known. If you go to that CID.com, .army.mil, you'll see all the locations of our offices. Unless some unforeseen circumstance was to take place, that wouldn't really apply. But again, you have to be prepared for anything, especially in this line. So that is what that agreement is for.
But I will tell you that our organization will work with you. Like if you were interested in joining CID, I know a lot of times they will say, hey, here's where we have openings. Give us your top 3 or whatever, and they'll do whatever they can to get you at those locations. So they'll work with you. So I know that they say that they have a mobility agreement, but they're very flexible. So, yes, ma'am. How would I describe the work-life balance? It's so much better than where it was 15 years ago. I don't even know how to describe that. So, for instance, when I was graduated CID school, day one I showed up at Fort Benning, Georgia, and I had 20 cases sitting on my desk waiting on me. Almost like, hey, here you go, and sink or swim. That has since changed. That's no longer the case. So we have what's called a FTA program, a field training agent program. So it allows you that time to shadow and then, start digging in here and there. It increases every BOR. And based off of that, like 33% in your second phase, 60% in your third phase, and then you're at like 85 or 90% in the last phase or something along those lines, and that'll help you like crawl, walk, run, if that makes sense. So it's not just throwing you to the wolves, saying, hey, you're graduated school, you're now a accredited agent, so here you go. You're shadowing someone, you're learning, and the caseload, at least at my office, is no more than 6 to 7 per agent now. We're very methodical on what we open. We're very methodical about how we investigate, and very methodical about getting to a successful resolution in a timely fashion. Meaning we don't hold cases open anymore the way that we used to, if that makes sense. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. USACIL, the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Laboratory, or the Defense Forensic, I don't know what the new name is. I'm sorry. I'm old. So, yes, USACIL, U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Laboratory, Fort Gillem, Georgia. They have positions available all the time on USA Jobs. Whatever your specialty, if you want it to be DNA, fingerprints, if you want to do ballistics, that sort of stuff. So they always have job openings there. Absolutely. Yes, sir. So we have, in the military right now, we have enlisted and warrant officers. Now, that may not be the case 2 years from now, but that's currently where we have. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yes. So we've shifted from the special victims. So I'm dating myself again. So 2009, we had a specific team, special victims team, that all of our special victims cases went to. And so we had a general crimes team and we had a special victims team. And so anytime a special victims case came in, our team was the ones who worked that investigation from cradle to grave. Now, instead of us specializing, because what we've seen is that kind of isolates you in a specific career path, and it doesn't broaden you as an investigator. So now we have what's called multidisciplinary teams, and but we still train personnel for special victims cases. And as part of that multidisciplinary team, you as an agent could say, hey, I want to focus more on special victims to whoever that supervisor is. And they'll keep that in the back of their mind for things that come through the door and allow you to explore that further. But like I said, as part of that team concept, you may get a death, you may get a larceny, but that SSA will just keep in mind, hey, if there's, a special victims case, and your caseload isn't that high, maybe we give you the next one. Okay? Yes, sir. Every day. Every single day. Matter of fact, I was just telling Agent Reyes when I was, before we started this presentation, working with some of the Joint Terrorism Task Force out in Oklahoma on some information that we got. So, but every single day, I can't tell you, I get a call from either a local PD or my other federal counterparts, somewhere across the state. I'm assuming it's probably the same at JBSA. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'm always going to recommend CID. I'm a little biased now, so that's I'm not going to say I'm not biased. At the end of the day, it matters what you want to go into. Like I said, I did not have a plan. I did not have a specialty in mind. I know some people are interested in investigating drugs, looking to the DEA as an example. But for me, and I'm not sure how you are, I just wanted to help victims. So that's why CID had sparked the interest with me. If that's something that interests you, where you're very broad on where you stand with stuff, I'm going to suggest CID always, along with our counterparts of OSI, NCIS, that allow these multidisciplinary things where you can really continue your education on many different aspects. Like we were talking about with the additional training, if you want to focus on special victims or violent crimes, there's always something you can do with that.
Not only that, but I mean, you could specialize, like if you wanted to come in and go poly, do polygraph exams. If you wanted to do forensic science consultation, you can also do that. It's almost like our crime scene expert at the field office level, who oversees all of like our death, homicide investigations. That's their expertise. So they're subject matter experts. That's who we consult with and talk to on a regular basis. So there's a lot of specialty things that you could do as well. Any other questions?
Criminal justice. No, mine is.
Mine's in criminal justice, and then I'm sad to say, but I'm 2 classes shy of my master's in digital forensic science, so that's all I'm going to say. Yes, ma'am. Which one? So I have an I have an associate's degree from Columbia College. My bachelor's degree is from Bethel University out of McKenzie, Tennessee, and then my master's will be from Champlain College out of Vermont. I'm a little, like I said, well-rounded and old. I get it. I'm sorry. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Because that, for me, I always like to be kind of the tip of the spear in what I kind of best my time and focus on. And for digital forensics, I will tell you, is in any and every investigation that we have. And so that specialty, forward-leaning, forward-thinking, you know, for after maybe my federal law enforcement career, you know, maybe that's something that I dig into and, you know, see where that takes me. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to do my sales pitch. We're in need of agents, and we're in need of you know, personnel. So please, if anything that we, you know, presented or talked to you about tonight interests you, please give us a look. We always need individuals and personnel that are interested in us, and it's been a rewarding career for me. Obviously, I've been loyal to CID for, like I said, 20 years. They've taken great care of me, and I know that they would you as well. So with that, I guess y'all have a great evening. Thank you for your time.
Okay, just a couple quick things. I know they mentioned internships. Internships have changed. And so now the way you have to do it now is go through your advisor, your academic advisor. They fill out a form, an interest form, I think it's what it's called. They send it over to our internship office, and then they'll get with you on making appointments. I would do that quickly. They're ending appointments for spring internships coming up, I think, in a couple weeks. First, second week in October is from my understanding. So it's now variable. You can do them for 3, 6, 9, or 12 credits. So, and they're available once you hit 30 credit hours as a student. So in the past, when you did it, it was seniors only. We've changed that, so definitely check that out. And we have the sign-in sheets. Don't forget about those. We also have bumper stickers on the way out for those of y'all. And they have some gear down here. They'll be out here taking questions as well. If y'all got some more questions you didn't want to necessarily say on the mic or whatever, go ahead and check that out. And thank y'all for coming. Appreciate it.